blindfold search and wrestle and fumbling class of a half-seen nature and a hidden God, a game of hide and seek and twilight home, a play of love and hate and fear and hope, continued in the nursery of mind, its hard and heavy romp of self-born twins.
Good morning and Happy New Year to everyone. I hope you didn't stay up too late or get up too early and you're all awake.
We're all awake.
Good. We're reading in Book 2, the Book of the Traveler of the Worlds, Canto 4, The Kingdoms of the Little Life. Let's see, we've come to page 140, near the bottom at the new paragraph. Line, I think, 131 or 313. Yes. So last time we were reading about this kind of obscure life energy, this scale in the hierarchy of worlds that is kind of the meeting place between matter and life. So it says life is just emerging out of matter. At the bottom of page 139, just to review, he says, it turns in us to finite loves and lusts, the will to conquer and have, to seize and keep, to enlarge life's room and scope and pleasure's range, to battle and overcome and make one's own, the hope to mix one's joy with others' joy, a yearning to possess and be possessed, to enjoy and be enjoyed, to feel, to live. So that gives us an image of how this world manifests itself here in our world, in our lives. So we can continue then towards the bottom of the page, 140. Turia, would you like to say?
Where exactly?
At the 313.
313. In the enigma of the darkened past, in the passion and self-loss of the infinite, when all was plunged in the negative void, non-being's night could never have been saved if being had not plunged into the dark, carrying with it its triple mystic cross, invoking in world time the timeless truth, bliss changed to sorrow, knowledge made ignorant, God's force turned into a child's helplessness, can bring down heaven by their sacrifice. The contradiction founds the base of life. The eternal, the divine reality, has faced itself with its own contraries. Being became the void, and conscious force, nations, and work of applied energy, and ecstasy took the figure of world being.
Thank you. Let's pause. Here I'd like to read Shraddhavan's commentary on this. Sometimes she gives very insightful commentary, and this is one of those instances. She says, "These are such mysterious and powerful lines. They are among the lines that the mother has recorded, and Sunilda has composed wonderfully moving music to accompany her reading of them. Let us try and understand them. In the enigma of the darkened vast, an enigma is a riddle or mystery, a puzzle that is very difficult to understand. The existence of the material universe is an enigma. Where has it come from and why? We believe, we are told, that the origin of everything is Satchidananda, pure and perfect existence, which is perfectly conscious and full of power, and also full of perfect bliss. But if that eternal and infinite state is the origin of everything, how could it possibly become or create or manifest this world that we live in? In these lines, Sri Aurobindo seems to be speaking of some cosmic or supercosmic disaster in which the infinite and eternal has undergone a dark transformation, a passion and self-loss of the infinite, in which all existence has been plunged into a negating void, which is the very opposite of Satchidananda, and asat, non-being, a state of non-existence. He does not tell us how or why such an event could happen, but he tells us that in order to rescue the non-being from its dark state, its night, being, pure and absolute existence, had to plunge after it into the darkness, carrying with it its mystic triple cross. The word passion has different shades of meaning, but always implies intense feeling of some kind. In Christian terms, we speak of the passion of Christ, meaning the suffering of Jesus at the time of his crucifixion. Here it is the passion and self-loss of the infinite. In the process of involution, the supreme consciousness, by a deliberate choice, loses awareness of its origin, loses awareness of its own true self. Superconsciousness becomes the inconscient. As a result, all was plunged in the negating void, falling down into a dark emptiness that says no to all existence, to all consciousness, to all delight. It becomes, as it were, non-being. That night of non-being could never have been saved if being, conscious existence, had not plunged into the dark, carrying with it its triple mystic cross. Satchidananda is the term coined by the ancient rishis to express the triple terms of being: existence, consciousness, bliss. The cross symbolizes the suffering of the divine in the material universe, the straight path of the divine descent and ascent being opposed, barred by the resistance of the fallen world. This is the dread, mysterious sacrifice by which bliss changes to sorrow, knowledge becomes ignorance, and God's omnipotence is turned into the helplessness of a little child. This sacrifice is made in order to invoke, to call the timeless truth down into world time, and to bring down heaven. And a little further down, she says, there is the sacrifice of the lower to the higher, an aspiration and self-giving to what we feel to be greater than ourselves and above us. This is a very powerful way for us to progress. But there is also the much more powerful sacrifice of the higher to the lower, what Sri Aurobindo refers to here. The divine leaving its state of perfect existence, consciousness, force, and bliss to plunge into non-being in order to bring existence, consciousness, and bliss even there. The great sacrifice of the involution of the one makes possible the evolution of the many and the all. And each step of evolution is aided by another descent. And then she elaborates on that, but we'll stop there. We had read where life had been called down. So at that stage when life arises, from the life plane, life descends. Similarly, mind will be called down and descend in order to assist, to enable the evolution of mind in matter.
I just want to say, you mentioned that she said the cross symbolizes suffering, but actually Mother has elaborated on that, saying the cross symbolizes the union of soul and nature, and two aspects of soul and nature, and it has become suffering in the earthly field because of the dislocation. There is no union with the soul and nature. And this, as my mother has explained this in the reason for Christmas and why the symbolisms exist. And she also said it symbolizes transformation. The cross is a symbol of transformation. And maybe that's why it is here it is it has become suffering, but it is the original symbol of the cross is the union of soul and nature.
Okay, thank you.
Why do they call it triple cross? Like same word, triple is which you are discussing. Is it referring to the triple, Sri Aurobindo's three?
Well, Shraddhavan suggests that it's Satchidananda, right? So, the triple mystic cross. Carrying with it, I guess, Satchidananda, existence, consciousness, and bliss, down into matter, but it becomes this kind of sacrifice. It's, denied, in a sense, expression. But it becomes embedded into matter, involved, and then slowly can arise, evolve over the long course of evolution.
Doesn't it seem the problem is to talk about this mystery in terms that are not necessarily negative? Because Bhavan, what she said, I think is really right, that Satchidananda, that force, if it goes down, I mean, we have to say it goes down, but it's not going down. It's redeeming the whole thing.
Right.
It's not only redeeming it, but it's also the expression of the divine love in order to express itself in matter, which is not negative, but has been, how do you say, by our philosophies and religions as taking a lower state. But it's really not that way. But how to talk about it, that's, I think, the problem Sri Aurobindo is facing here. And that's why I think myself and others get confused here a bit. But if we stick with the Satchidananda, we understand it. That's what I would say.
And the Satchidananda carries that love, down into matter.
See, because the consciousness includes it all, includes the being. And the awareness of the consciousness, you see, then generates the bliss, so that even the sacrifice is still bliss. And even the so-called descent, this shortcut through hell and all these things that Aurobindo uses, are all part of that ascension. Even though it's a descension.
Yeah.
But see, we can't talk about it in our disjunctive manner.
Yeah.
Here, non-being is just material world. It's just a material, not a being. It's not connected to any Satan or evil or anything. Non-being is material things. 9316.
Yeah, I think it kind of means nothingness. That's how I kind of interpret it.
It's not connected to any being as such.
Not a being.
Or nations or just material world.
Yeah, I wouldn't identify and say a being, but just plain being. That's existence itself.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of a non-existence.
Yeah, because it doesn't exist.
He's giving us a paradox. Praveen, would you like to continue?
In a mysterious dispensation's law, a wisdom that prepares its far-off ends, climbs souls start a slow, chaotic game. A blindfold search and wrestle and fumbling clasp of a half-seen nature and a hidden soul. A game of hide and seek in twilight rooms. A play of love and hate and fear and hope continues in the nursery of mind. Its hard and heavy home of self-born twins. At last, the struggling energy can emerge and meet the voiceless being in wider fields. Then can they see and speak and breast to breast, with a larger consciousness, clearer light, the two embrace and strive, and each know each, regarding closer now to playmate space. Even in these formless coilings, he could feel matter's response to an infant stir of soul. In nature, he saw the mighty spirit conceived, watched the weak birth of a tremendous force, pursued the riddle of Godhead's tentative face, heard the faint rhythms of a great unborn news.
Thank you.
Can you help me with self-born twins?
Can you just read through it?
Just take a moment.
You give us time to read it through.
So he refers to this descent of Satchidananda into the void, into matter, and then it's turning into its opposites, consciousness becoming inconscience and ignorance, bliss turning into pain and suffering, force turning into weakness. So this is how the divine has chosen to start this game of evolution, her slow yonic game. But he says it's a wisdom that so prepares this game, the far-off ends that are to come at the culmination of this evolution. But in this slow emergence out of matter, there is this blindfold search and wrestle and fumbling clasp of a half-seen nature and a hidden soul. So we see nature is not fully emerged. We only see the first beginnings of the possibilities of nature and its beginnings of life here. So it's only half seen. We haven't seen its greater possibilities manifest yet. And a hidden soul. Within it is this soul, presumably also there because of this descent of Satchidananda into the darkness, into the void. And then there's this game of hide and seek in twilit rooms, a play of love and hate and fear and hope. In the nursery of mind, its hard and heavy romp of self-born twins. So these self-born twins seem to be nature and soul. This half-arisen nature and this hidden soul, playing with one another. Nature seeking in a way for its soul, soul seeking for its true expression.
What does dispensation mean?
Dispensation.
329.
Yeah. What has been given out, what has been dispensed.
Self-born twins are also dualities, love and hate, and likes and dislikes also. Soul and nature, plus all the dualities in life.
I think of dispensation as being a forgiveness from an expectation. Like, for example, if you think that you cannot eat meat on Friday, you're raised as a Catholic and you're told you may not eat meat on Friday. However, because you have severe anemia, the doctor says you can eat meat on Friday, and the priest says you can eat meat on Friday. That is a dispensation. You've been given a pass.
Mm-hmm.
An exemption.
An exception, yes.
Here, Narad, in his lexicon of an infinite mind, his kind of dictionary of Savitri, he says the divine ordering of worldly affairs. The divine ordering of worldly affairs. But I find also, his definitions typically are referring to specifically how it's used in Savitri, not a general definition of the term. We see as this evolution is unfolding that the two, I would say soul and nature, embrace and strive and each know each regarding closer now the playmate's face. Slowly in the course of evolution, nature gives a truer and truer expression of the soul, and the soul can manifest itself more clearly in nature. So they begin to join, in a sense, integrate.
In the nursery of mind, the mind is then seems as a place where this development happens.
Yeah, he's suggesting this is happening at this level of the emergence of life, and mind is now coming forth. So we're still at a kind of a low level of evolution with the emergence of the beginnings of mind. But even at this level, soul is getting to express itself more and more clearly in nature. Towards the end here, Sri Aurobindo goes back to Aswapati.
Yes, suddenly.
So he's able to see, even in these first coilings of life, this first emergence of life out of matter, he could see the mighty spirit concealed. He could see the birth of a great, tremendous force. He could hear the faint rhythms of a great unborn muse. He sees the divine process unfolding here, even in its beginnings. Muse? The muse is the inspirer of poetry or of form.
But here I think in this context,
could we start saying the line where we ask for something, because it's difficult to carry a word everywhere. To say the line, they're all in the same.
He's referring to that last line, heard the faint rhythms of a great unborn muse.
It refers to the Greek, the Greek said that, thought that inspiration of the poets, for example, were brought to the poet by a divinity that they called the muse. So there was the muse of poetry, the muse of music, it's inspiration, a divinity, Greek.
So even at this level of evolution in its rhythms of growth, he sees behind it this muse, this divine inspirer of all of this. Helmut, would you continue? Excuse me. I'll just inform, we didn't read through this last section yet. So now, instead of commenting on passage by passage, let's read through the remainder of the canto, and then afterwards we'll go back and reread and comment on it. So we'll just be reading through now.
Then came a fiery breath of waking life, and there arose from the deep gulf of things the strange creations of a peaking sense. existence is half real and half dream. A life was there that hoped not to survive. Beings were born who perish without choice. Events that were formless dramas, limbs, and actions driven by a blind creature will. A seeking power found out its road before. Patterns were built of blood and joy and pain, and symbol figures for the moods of life. An insect hedonism fluttered and crawled and basked in the sunlit nature's surface thrills, and dragon rapture, python agonies crawled in the marsh of mire and licked the sun. Huge armored strength shook a frail waking rock. Great puissant creatures with a dwarfish brain, and pygmy tribes imposed a small life.
Thank you. Could we go to the next, Miss, would you like to read?
In the model of humanity, eternal watches the extreme experience, and master of desires and prayers. He is the self of the heart conscious mind, on grounds the strength, solidity, and process. Massive form in small shapes, the subtle balance of form also. The order of intelligence likeness, around the maiden and means of form. The kingdom of the animal self arose. The will is all, and mind is still not alone. And the larger ways of dumb unseen control.
Thank you. Can we continue next? The force that works. A little louder if you can.
But to the outward only they allow. Only they refer to actors and subjects.
Okay. Okay. Next.
Of need that drove their lives, a body that knew not its own soul within. There lived and longed and work and joy and freedom. The mind was there that met the objective world, as if a stranger or enemy stood. Its thoughts that needed only a sharp sense. It captured not the spirit in the form. It entered not the heart of what it saw. It looked not for the power behind the act. It studied not the hidden movement in the things. Now, strove to find the meaning of it all. Beings were there who owned a human form, observed they lived in the passion of the sea, but knew not who they were or why they lived. is joy, and is stillness to delight of all the things we identify with the spirit's southward journey. They work for the body's voice. They crave no more.
Thank you. Let's put next.
The veiled spectator watching from their depths, fixed not his inward eye upon himself, nor turned to find the author of the plot. He saw the drama only and the stage. There was no brooding stress of deeper sense. The burden of reflection was not born. Mind looked on nature with unknowing eyes, adored her wounds and feared her monstrous strokes. It pondered not on the magic of her laws. It thirsted not for the secret wells of truth, but made a register of crowding facts and strung sensations on a vivid thread. It hunted and it fled and sniffed the winds, and slotted inert in sunshine and soft air. It sought the engrossing contact of the world, but only to feed the surface sense with bliss. These felt lives quiver in the outward touch. They could not feel behind the touch the soul.
Thank you. Margaret, over here.
Not their form of self or nature's art, to enjoy it and to survive in all their care. The narrow horizon of their days was filled with things and creatures that could help and hurt. The world's values hang upon their new self, isolated, cramped in the vast unknown. To save their small lives from surrounding them, they made a tiny circle of defense against the speech of the huge universe. They played upon the world and read its play, but never dreamed to conquer and to be free. Obeying the world's power schemes and held abuse, the scanty part their little was strong. There was no consciousness and no life plan. The patterns of thinking of the little group fixed the traditional behavior's law. Ignorant of soul, safe as a lost, tiny mechanism, unchanging lives, and to allow usual sense and feeling speed, they turned in rules of animal design.
Thank you. Nitya.
In walls of stone, fenced around they worked and walked, gripped by a banded selfishness for small, or wrought a dreadful wrong and cruel pain on sentient lives, and thought they did no ill. Ardent from the sack of happy, peaceful homes, and gorged with slaughter, plunder, rape, and fire, they made of human selves their helpless prey, a drove of captives led to lifelong woe. Or torture a spectacle made and holiday, mocking or thrilled by their torn victims' pangs, admiring themselves as titans and as gods. Proudly they sang their high and glorious deeds, and praised their victory and their splendid force. An animal in the instinctive world, pushed by life impulses, forced by common needs, each in his own kind saw his ego's glass. All served the aim and action of the pack. those like himself by blood or custom came, to him the paths of his life, his adjunct selves, his personal nebulas constituent stars, satellite companions of his solar eye.
Thank you.
A master of his life environment, a leader of a public human mass, caring for safety in a day of earth. He gathered them around him as a menopause, to make a common front against the world, for weakened soul on an indifferent earth, as a conscious for his undefined heart, or else to feel his body's lonely. In other than his kindly sensitive, an alien and life force to shun and flee, staying an adversary to hate and slay, for he never lives the servant of abuse. At war with all evil, his finger fate. Absorbed in the present act, the fleeting days, no thought to look beyond world's things, or dream to make it ever to fail him, or that some touch divine surprise his heart.
Thank you. Ronnie?
Gladness that the fugitive only gain, the desire to grasp the bliss, the experience won, movement and speed and strength were joy enough, and bodily longing shares in quarrel and play, and tears and laughter and need cold love. In war and clasp, these life ones join the all-life, wrestlings of a divided unity, inflicting mutual grief and happiness in ignorance of the self forever one. Arming its creatures with delight and hope, a half-awakened nescience struggled there to know by sight and touch the outside of things. Instinct was formed, in memory's crowded sleep, the past lived on as in a bottomless sea, converting into half-thought the quickened sense. She felt around for truth with fumbling hands, clutched to her but a little she could reach and seize, and put aside in her subconscious gaze.
Thank you. Nara? No, just...
So must the dim being grow in light and force, and rise to his higher destiny at last. Look up to God and down at the universe, and learn by failure and progress by fall, and battle with environment and doom. By suffering discover his deep soul, and by possession grow to his own vasts. Halfway she stopped and found her path no more. Still nothing was achieved but to begin, yet finished seemed the circle of her force. Only she had beaten out sparks of ignorance. Only the life could drink and not the mind. Only the sense could feel and not the soul. Only was lit some heat or flame of life, some joy to be, some rapturous leap of sense. All was an impetus of half-conscious force, a spirit's calling down in dense light moon, a vague self-grasping at the shape of things. Behind all moved seekings for vessels to hold, a first raw vintage of the grapes of God. On earth's mud, a strip of supernal bliss, intoxicating the stupefied soul and mind. Heady wine of rapture, dark and cool, dim, uncast, yet into spiritual form. Obscure inhabitant of God's blind core, an unborn Godhead's will, a mute desire.
Thank you.
creation now revealed its face. A mold of body's early mind was made. A glint of light kindled the obscure wall of force. It dowled a driven world with the same idea, and armed the act with thoughts stagnant on it. A small thinking wing washed the worlds of time. A difficult revolution from below called a vast intervention from above. Else this great, blind, inconstant universe could never have disclosed its hidden mind, or even in breakers worked in beast and man. The intelligence that devised the cosmic scheme, at first we saw a dim, obscure mind power, moving constantly by matter and dumb light. A current thing, it streamed in life's vast flow, tossing and drifting under a drifting sky. And with the surge and glimmering, tremulous wash, released a splash of sense and feelings waves.
Thank you.
The depth needs of an insentient world, its huddled waves and foam of consciousness run, pressing and ebbing through a narrow strait, carrying experience in its crowded face. It flowed, merging into upper light, from the deep pool of its subliminal birth, to reach some high existence still unknown. There was no thinking self, and there was none, almost unorganized place and seeking bag, only with the unstable surface rose, sensations, stabs and edges of desire, impressions, lips and lips emotion cries, occasional colloquy of flesh with flesh, a murmur of heart longing formless heart, glimmerings of knowledge with no shape of thought, and jets of subconscious glow of amber's pools, almost to sparkle on a flowing thought, it whirl around the drifting shadow sky, on an unconscious flood of forcing time.
Thank you. B.
Then came the presence of a seeing power that drew all into a dancing, turbulent mass, circling around a single luminous point, center of reference in a conscious field, figure of a unitary light within. It lit the impulse of the half-sentient flood. Even an illusion gave of fixity, as if a sea could serve as a firm soul. That strange observing power imposed its sight. It forced on flux a limit and a shape. It gave its stream a lower, narrow bank, drew lines to snare the spirit's formlessness. It fashioned the life mind of bird and beast, the answer of the reptile and the fish, the primitive pattern of the thoughts of man, a finite movement of the infinite, came winging its way through a wide air of time. A march of knowledge moved in nations and guarded in the form a separate soul. Its right to be immortal it reserved, but built a wall against the siege of death, and threw a hook to clutch eternity.
Thank you. Paula?
A thinking deity appeared in space. A little ordered world broke into view, where being had prison room for act and sight, a floor to walk, a clear but scanty range. And instrument personality was born, and a restricted plant intelligence consented to confine in narrow bounds its seeking. It tied the thought to visible things, prohibiting the adventure of the unseen and the soul's tread through the unknown infinities. A reflex reason, nature habits glass, illumined life to know and fix its field, accept a dangerous ignorant brevity and the inconclusive purpose of its walk, and profit by the hour's precarious chance in the allotted boundaries of its fate. A little joy and knowledge satisfied this little being tied into a knot and hung on a bulge of its environment. A little curve cut off in measureless space, a little span of light in all vast time.
Thank you. Suraj?
The thought was that the plant will get slow, but the small aim within a narrow scale, costing unmeasured toil on transient things. It knew itself a creature of the new. It asked no larger law, no after gain. It had no inward look, no unbrought case. A backward scholar on logic's
Rickety.
bench. Indoctrinated by the hearing sense, it took appearance for the face of God, for casual lights, the marching of the sands, for heaven, the
Star.
starry strip of doubtful blue, aspects of being to be the whole.
Thank you. I'll continue. There was a voice of busy interchange, a marketplace of trivial thoughts and acts, a life soon spent, a mind the body's slave. Here seemed the brilliant crown of nature's work, and tiny egos took the world as means to sate a while dwarf lusts and brief desires. In a death-closed passage, saw life's start and end, as though a blind alley were creation's sign, as if for this the soul had coveted birth in the wonderland of a self-creating world and the opportunities of cosmic space. This creature passionate only to survive, fettered to puny thoughts with no wide range, and to the body's needs and pangs and joys, this fire growing by its fuel's death, increased by what it seized and made its own, it gathered and grew and gave itself to none. So we continue. Turiel.
Only it hoped for greatness in its end, and pleasure and victory in small fields of power, and conquest of lifehood, of self and give, and animally limited by its feeding space. It knew not the immortal in its house. It had no greater purpose to be. In meaning only, it was powerful, acute to capture truth for outward use. Its knowledge was the body's instrument, absorbed in the little work of its present house. It turned around the same and changing points, in the same circle of interest and desire, but thought itself the master of its gear. Although for action, not for wisdom made, thought was its apex, or its gutter green. It saw an image of the external world and saw its surface self, but knew no more.
Thank you. Helmut? No.
Slow, confused, and bored, self-search, mind grew for clarity, cut out, precise, a gleam and close in a storm influence. In this bound thickens narrow leadership, tied to the soul, inspired by common things, attached to a confined familiar world, amid the multitude of their motive thoughts, their changing factors and vermilion masks. Life was a play monotonous to the soul. There were no vast perspectives of the spirit, no swift invasions of unknown delight, no golden distances of white release. This petty state resembled our human race, but fixed to eternity of changeless time. A moment's movement doomed to last through time. Existence, rich like stamped in constant curves, a half-moving billion in mist, which from a void of form arose beside and jutted out into a void of soul. A little light in a great darkness formed, life knew not where it went, nor whence it came. Around all floated still in pursuit place.
Thank you. Sri Aurobindo reminds us here at the end that he's describing this subtle world of the little life, not our physical world, but yet we tend to think as we're reading and recognize all these things in our world. So they also have their inroads into our physical world and into our lives. So we recognize many of these energies and ways of being and of life here. But in this subtle world, it's not evolving, so they are fixed in this type forever. So we go back, let's see. So at the bottom of page 141. So Praveen, would you like to start?
Then came a 5-year breath of material life, and here arose from the dim gulf of things the strange creations of the thinking sense, existences half real and half dream. Life was there that hoped not to survive. Beings were born who perished without trace. Events that were a formless drama's myths, and actions driven by a blind creature will. A seeking path found out its road to form. Patterns were built of love and joy and pain, and symbol figures for the modes of life.
Thank you. So here life is emerging into waking, into a kind of more conscious life, a fiery breath of waking life arose from the dim gulf of things. Earlier he was referring to a more primitive life, was not self-conscious. But here still, the life forms are quite obscure, and the mind, even though it's emerging and becoming conscious, it's still very rudimentary, still tied to the senses, to what it can sense outside of itself. The actions and actions driven by a blind creature will. Its actions are driven more through the life instincts rather than from mind choosing which direction to go.
But it is already the creation of thinking sense. And
The sense mind, Sri Aurobindo refers to it. It's a kind of a rudimentary mind.
And to me comes the questioning, when life was there, that hope not to survive. And when I thought about all the wars which were on earth. This impulse is there from this kind of level of existence, which is always pushing forward, which is having influence to you.
Perhaps a kind of a death instinct or something like that. Freud talked about the death instinct as being one of the fundamental drives. I don't know if that's too well accepted, but
the question is where this comes from.
Perhaps the life here, it's quite difficult and painful. So there might be that will not to continue sometimes.
Don't you think it's more not caring? It's more careless. That's what I would think.
Mm-hmm.
Live or die.
Yeah, that could be. So there were patterns built of love and joy and pain, and symbol figures for the moods of life. So there's all kinds of patterns here of living that are formed in which the beings enter into those patterns and express. And then we'll see in more detail this life emerging. So, Miss, would you like to continue?
And symbol figures of the rules of life, and set your heroism, London and Rome, and baskets of assembled ages and fixed hills, and dragon raptures, fight and crawling of marsh and mire and lake and sun. Huge armored strands should frail on the ground, great whose creatures with a dwarfish brain, and pygmy tribes imposed in the small life drift, in a dwarf model of humanity. Nature now launches the extreme experience, the masterful of her designs and proof. Luminous result of her half-conscious incline. On runs twist with the slugs of minutes and rockets, massive from infinitesimal shapes, with subtle balancing of body and soul. An order of intelligent littleness.
Thank you. Let's pause there.
Sounds like talking about dinosaurs here.
Yeah, he's referring to the early forms of life.
It ends with a dog, like human life has also come in this description.
Yeah.
Surface streams, what are surface streams?
Surface thrills.
And perhaps in some nature's surface streams.
Superficial things, very superficial things. Excitement.
Excitement on the outer physical level. So we have this kind of insect level, dragon, python level, reptiles, huge armored strengths. That sounds like they're dinosaurs. Great puissant creatures with a dwarfish brain. And pygmy tribes impose their small life drift. So these were our human ancestors, I guess. In a dwarf model of humanity, nature now launched this extreme experience and master point of her design's caprice, luminous result of her half-conscious climb on rungs twixt her sublimities and grotesques, to massive from infinitesimal shapes, to a subtle balancing of body and soul. to an order of intelligent littleness. We have the very tiny life forms to the giant life forms of the dinosaurs, and then she comes to a human being where there's a subtle balancing of body and soul, and a simple intelligence fixed in narrow grooves.
Life drift. Can we try to suppose there's more life drift?
Yeah, their way of life.
Drifting. Without direction.
So we continue. Would you like to? Around him in the moment.
And the heart obeys unseen control. The force that works by the light of ignorance as animal experiment being. Clouding with conscious truth, helpful speed, but to the outward only where they align. Only they reply in touches and simplicity. And to the quick of me that do their need.
Thank you.
What is a master point?
Master point.
A master point of her design's caprice.
Oh, that's, you could say like a master touch, like a high point. So with this emergence of this humanity, although simple humanity, she's reached a certain critical stage in the evolution. That's what he seems to be suggesting. And he had kind of described it as this kind of subtle balancing between soul and nature earlier. It becomes the point where soul can begin to emerge more fully and become conscious, only at that level of humanity. So he's describing the kingdom of the animal self, where deed is all, where action is everything, and mind is still half-born. It's propelled by its instincts, more or less, not really driven yet by its mind. Its mind is still a sense mind that is perceiving things outside of itself, reacting to those sense impacts. And these lines are interesting where he says, the force that works by the light of ignorance, her animal experiment began. So seems to be referring to that force, which is working in the ignorance. It's emerging at this level of life, crowding with conscious creatures her world scheme. So it's nature operating, but it's as if the nature is, the way he's describing it, as if it's not fully conscious. It's working at the level of ignorance. So, and again, he's describing this kind of sense mind replying to touches and surfaces and to the prick of need that drove their lives. I think we should maybe stop there for today.
blindfold search and wrestle and fumbling craft of a half-seen nature and a hidden God, a game of hide and seek and twilight home, a play of love and hate and fear and hope, continued in the nursery of mind, its hard and heavy romp of self-born twin.
Thanks to Sri Aurobindo. All of you have a great new year.